The wind that swept down from the Wyoming mountains was a living thing, a constant, whispering force that had sculpted the gnarled pines and the very character of the people who lived beneath it. On the Triple T Ranch, it was the only sound that accompanied Eli as he worked. He was a man of silence, his past a closed book written in a language of loss. Orphaned at 10 when a fever took his parents within a week of each other, he'd been passed around distant relatives like a spare tool until he landed, at 14, on the doorstep of Old Man Thompson. Thompson was a rancher of the old school, his face a roadmap of leathery creases, his heart as seemingly tough as the soles of his worn boots. He did not offer Eli a home, but a roof and 3 meals a day in exchange for hard labor. It was a transaction, and Eli, with nowhere else to go, accepted the terms. He learned the rhythm of the ranch, the pre-dawn chill of the milking parlor, the blistering heat of haying season, the bone-deep exhaustion of mending miles of fence. He learned to read the weather in the clouds and the needs of an animal in the flick of an ear. He grew tall and lean, his hands becoming a network of calluses and scars, a permanent map of his toil. He was 20 the day the new Colt was born. A skittish, long-legged thing, it stumbled on wobbly legs, and its mother, a fine-bred mare, wanted nothing to do with it. She refused to let it nurse, turning her back with a dismissive swish of her tail. Thompson, watching from the fence, spat a stream of tobacco juice into the dust. "No use," he grunted. "That one's not a fighter. It'll be dead by morning. Nature's way." Eli said nothing. He just watched the tiny creature, its ribs already visible, its breath coming in shallow puffs. He saw not a lost cause, but a reflection of a small, scared boy standing on a strange doorstep. That night, long after Thompson had gone to bed, Eli slipped into the barn. He warmed milk on a small stove, filling an old bottle with a rubber nipple. The colt was weak, too weak to stand. So Eli sat in the hay, cradling the animal's head in his lap, patiently coaxing drops of warm milk into its mouth. He stayed there until the first light of dawn tinged the sky, the colt's head a warm, trusting weight against his leg. Thompson found him there. He looked from the sleeping colt to the exhausted young man, and for a fleeting moment, something unreadable passed behind his hard eyes. He didn't praise Eli. He just said, "Well, I guess you're on nursemaid duty. Don't let your other chores slide." But he left a sack of sugar cubes on the feed bin the next day. Eli named the colt Chance. He fed him, brushed his downy coat, and talked to him in a low, steady voice when no one was around to hear. Chance grew strong, and a bond formed between them that was deeper than any between man and beast on the ranch. The horse would follow Eli like a dog, nuzzling his pocket for the expected sugar cube. Thompson never admitted he was the one supplying them. Years turned. Thompson grew older, his steps slower, his hands more gnarled with arthritis. The running of the ranch fell more and more to Eli. He never asked for more money, never demanded a title. The ranch was his world, the only constant he had ever known. One harsh winter, a blizzard trapped Thompson in town. For 3 days, Eli single-handedly tended to the herd, digging paths through chest-high drifts to get to the hay stores, breaking ice on the water troughs until his muscles screamed. He found a ewe buried in snow, nearly frozen, and carried her into the bunkhouse, warming her by the stove until she bleated weakly back to life. When Thompson returned, he saw the saved ewe, the fed herd, the exhausted but unwavering man who had held it all together. He stood in the doorway of the bunkhouse, snow melting from his boots, and looked at Eli not as a hired hand, but as a man. "The place would have fallen apart without you," was all he said, but it was the closest thing to gratitude Eli had ever received. The following spring, Thompson took a bad fall from a horse that wasn't Chance. He was laid up in the main house, and Eli took over everything. He also started leaving a pot of stew or a fresh loaf of bread on the old man's porch. He never went in. The transaction, in his mind, was still in place. But kindness, once planted, has a way of growing wild. One evening, A young boy from a neighboring farm showed up at the fence line, his face streaked with tears. His dog, a border collie mix, had been caught in a trap. The boy's father was away, and his mother didn't know what to do. Eli, without a word, fetched his toolbox and followed the boy. The dog was terrified, in pain, but Eli moved with a calm, sure gentleness. He spoke softly to the animal, his large, rough hands impossibly delicate as he worked to pry the rusty jaws of the trap open. He carried the dog back to the boy's farm, splinted its leg, and showed the boy how to change the bandages. A week later, the boy appeared at the Triple T with a jar of his mother's blackberry jam. Eli accepted it with a quiet nod. The story spread, as stories do in remote places. Eli did not seek out these moments, they found him. He found a lost hiker, dehydrated and disoriented, and guided him back to the main trail, sharing his canteen and a strip of jerky. He helped a young couple whose truck had slid into a ditch during an autumn ice storm, towing them out with the ranch's old tractor and refusing any payment. He started noticing that folks would wave to him now when he went into town for supplies, a genuine warmth in their gestures. He was no longer just the orphaned ranch hand, he was Eli from the Triple T. Old man Thompson never fully recovered from his fall. The day he called Eli into the main house, the air was thick with the smell of dust and liniment. The old man was propped up in bed, the ranch's ledger books in a single, thick envelope on the bedside table. Eli, he began, his voice a dry rasp. I never was one for pretty words. This ranch, it was my life. My wife, she's been gone 30 years. No children. He paused, gathering his breath, his eyes fixed on Eli's. You came here a scared boy. You're leaving it the best man I've ever known. Eli stood, stunned into silence. Thompson gestured to the envelope. It's all there. The deed. The ranch is yours. Free and clear. He saw the protest forming on Eli's lips and held up a hand. Don't. It's not a gift. It's a payment. Payment for years of loyalty I didn't earn. For kindness I didn't show. For saving that damn fool Colt. And for saving me from dying a lonely, bitter old man. This place, it needs a heart. You gave it one. Thompson passed away a month later. Eli, the orphan, was now the owner of the Triple T. The weight of it was immense, not as a property, but as a legacy he felt unworthy to carry. He did not change the name. He did not tear down the old bunkhouse or modernize the main house. Instead, he built upon the foundation of quiet kindness that had become his life. The Triple T became a different kind of place. When a family lost their home to a fire, it was Eli who showed up with a trailer full of lumber and a crew of ranch hands he'd organized to help them rebuild. When a drought hit the valley and smaller farms struggled, Eli shared his water rights and helped dig a new well for his neighbors, remembering the boy with the trapped dog. He started hiring young men who were a little lost, a little angry at the world, giving them the same chance old man Thompson had given him, but with a gentle word of guidance, a hot meal shared at his own table, and a fair wage. He never married, but he was never alone. The ranch became a haven. Children from town came to see Chance, now a magnificent, gentle horse who was patient with small, unsure hands. The couple he pulled from the ditch sent him a Christmas card every year, their growing family pictured in front of their now thriving farm. The boy with the dog, now a young man, often stopped by to help with the calving, his loyal collie still trailing at his heels. Decades flowed by like the river that bordered the ranch. Eli's hair turned silver, his steps slowed, but the kindness in his eyes only deepened, etched into the lines around them. The legacy he built was not one of vast wealth or fame. You wouldn't read about him in history books. But in the valley, his name was spoken with a reverence usually reserved for saints and legends. On a warm afternoon, with the sun painting the mountains in shades of gold and purple, an old Eli sat on the porch of the main house. A young ranch hand, a quiet boy of 17 with a troubled past he'd brought with him to the Triple T, was brushing down Chance's grandson in the corral. The boy was rough, his movements angry and impatient. Eli watched for a long moment. Then, he pushed himself up from his chair and walked slowly to the fence. He didn't scold. He didn't offer advice. He simply leaned on the rail, his presence a calm anchor in the boy's storm. "He's a good horse," Eli said, his voice soft as the evening breeze. "A little scared, is all. Doesn't know he can trust you yet." The boy glanced at him, his expression guarded. Eli reached into his pocket and pulled out 2 sugar cubes. He handed one to the boy. "Here. Let him come to you." The boy took the cube, skepticism in his eyes. But he stood still, his hand open. The young horse eyed him, ears flicking, then cautiously stepped forward, its velvety nose nudging the boy's palm. A slow, wondrous smile broke across the boy's face, the first Eli had ever seen on him. It was a small thing, a crack in a hardened shell, but in that moment, Eli saw it all. The scared colt in the barn. The lost boy on the doorstep. The trapped dog. The grateful couple. The endless, interconnected chain of simple, quiet acts. He was an orphaned ranch hand who owned nothing and then everything. He had no family, and yet the entire valley was his family. He had built no monuments, but his legacy was etched into the grateful heart of a boy calming a horse, and it would ripple outward, carried on the Wyoming wind, a legacy of kindness that would long outlive the man.